It's time for McElmurry Christmas II. McElmurry Christmas II, another exciting, fulfilling story about McElmurry, Brown, whatever relationships. And here we began with that sweet little Georgia girl from Go Tell It on the Mountain, Imogene Vaughn. There she is, Imogene, no middle initial, Vaughn. And as she attended the school in Norman Park, it wasn't long until an election was held, and she was elected Miss Norman Park. How did she win this election? Was it her ravaging beauty? Yes, that but a lot more. She was also known as Legs Vaughn. And here's Legs Vaughn with her brother in a park, an alligator park. And there's the real secret of her success. Legs Vaughn with her brother Albert in a natural wonder park in Florida. Well, what happened to this wonderful little girl? Wouldn't you know it? She met a wonderful, beautiful, charming, handsome prince from Arkansas. And it wasn't long until she was wearing this maternity dress. There she is in all her ravaging beauty. What a maternity dress. I wonder who picked that out. I wonder who had such magnificent taste. Look at that smile on her face. What a wonderful woman. What a wonderful woman. And what an even more wonderful husband. But what happened next? Well, as is the case with many women after marriage, she began to put on a little weight. Yes, dear Imogene became a little hefty. Nevertheless, her ravaging beauty maintained. As time passed, she began to feel insecure, although she had a wonderful husband. And then she read this article, Blondes Have More Fun. Blondes have more fun. And it wasn't long until, you guessed it, she had dyed her hair blonde. And there she is, with her grandson, Trey. A beautiful picture. But it wasn't long until she realized that blondes don't have that much fun. And by this time along had come her other grandchild, Courtney. And here she is, this wonderful Imogene Vaughn McElmurry with her two grandchildren. What a wonderful woman. What made her so kind and sweet and gentle? It was the training by her marvelous husband, Thomas Marshall McElmurry. And how thankful she is for him and all of his wonderful tips that he's given her on how to live successfully on this planet. Oh, yes, and who is this wonderful girl's mother? The former Miss Norman Park. Who is the mother of Imogene Vaughn? There she is, in all her radiant beauty, getting ready to fly toward the west on her broom. The Wicked Witch of the East. And although it's not shown in this picture, her son-in-law is waiting at the house with a large bucket full of water. There she is, Blanche Morris Vaughn. And who is this wonderful husband of Imogene, no middle initial, Vaughn? None other than this charming young man that you see sitting on the back of a Model A coupe, showing his love for kittens even in his early age. What a kind, generous personality this man has developed over the years. And there he is, sitting on the back of his grandfather's Model A, looking out and dreaming of a world when he might become a successful movie star. And here we see him in his younger years, rivaling James Dean as the young rebel. Just look at that charming physique. Look at that casual personality. Naturally, with our country at war, it was necessary to call up the most valiant man in service, Thomas Marshall McElmurry. There he is in all of his radiant glory, going on to make E9, Battle Chief of the Republic. Ba-bum, 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 ba-bum. And here he is again, entering Arkansas Tech University to become one of the foremost scholars of this age and of this century. It was shortly after this that as a public service to this country, he went into a federal prison, posing as a prisoner, actually faking out most of the inmates, and was able to successfully recover these stolen goods. And here he is later on shown relaxing with the man responsible for a large portion of those thefts, the Frito Bandito. There he is, casually relaxing after one of the greatest captures in the history of this country. This is the man who captured the Frito Bandito. And finally, after having saved the country, and delivered many stolen goods from federal prisons across the area, retiring from the National Security Agency in 1971. Here this man is shown relaxing in his living room. But did this man stop in his pursuit against evil? Never. And here in the middle picture we see him once again on the track, preaching all over the country, holding in his arms his beloved granddaughter Courtney. But one last picture of this man and one last unanswered question. What is the sinister relationship between this man you see sitting in the chair and this great soldier, politician, theologian, and all-around good guy? What is the relationship between this man and Thomas Marshall McElmurry? We may never know. But perhaps in McElmurry Christmas III, the secret will be revealed. And now we bring to a close this particular chapter in this wonderful marriage of Thomas Marshall McElmurry and Imogene, no middle initial, Vaughn. And there they are, standing outside their home, and you see the ever-protective arm of her mighty husband surrounding her, protecting her from all evil. And then we notice a smile on her face, a smile of ecstatic happiness. Wouldn't you be happy if you had a husband like this? And finally we close this brief episode in the lives of these two people, Thomas Marshall McElmurry and Imogene, no middle initial, Vaughn. Once again, look at that smile of contentment on her face. What a wonderful husband, what a wonderful life she's had. What a man, what a man. And it wasn't long until the union of Thomas Marshall McElmurry and Imogene, no middle initial, Vaughn, brought forth their first child. And here that first child is Vicki Lynn McElmurry with her grandparents, George and Blanche Vaughn. Take a look at this sweet little child. See how happy she is. And she's giving you the "it's all right" sign. Notice the way she has her little pinkies gathered together. It's okay. Everything's fine. I have wonderful parents and wonderful grandparents, but I owe it all to my beloved father, Thomas Marshall McElmurry. Yes, she grew, and as time passed, she went to England with her parents, and here she is at Stonehenge, looking out over the English countryside, making all sorts of decisions. As the formative years of her life developed, through some reason unbeknownst to her father, to her beloved parents, she developed a liberal attitude, and this attitude extended to all minority groups. It wasn't long until she began to try to take on the characteristics of these minority groups, and she began to try to act like a Mexican troubadour. These things have marred her life, have greatly saddened her father. And so perhaps one day she'll see the light and become conservative and anti-liberal and will stop protecting minority groups. And as the child grew, with the passage of time, her father would often come to her and say, "Vicki, why don't you ever smile?" The child would not answer. She never smiled, and the years went by. Then one day she smiled, and I saw the reason the child had never smiled. She had buck teeth. She had buck teeth. Well, for years after this picture, she would never show her teeth again. But then she had a child, and the child also had buck teeth. They had this picture made, and they said before they took it, "What the heck? Let's both smile together and show our buck teeth." Oh yes, how well I remember those pre-buck tooth days, back before she had teeth. Here she is with her winning smile. What a charmer she was to her magnificent grandfather, Thomas Marshall McElmurry. And here we see her riding happily on her shoulders. What a rare treat, what a lucky girl to have such a charming, debonair grandfather, modest, humble in every way. As she grew, she still wouldn't smile, because by this time, two very large protrusions were beginning to come from her upper lip. Buck teeth in a McElmurry. What a horrible thought. even with those buck teeth, what a beautiful child. What a wonderful granddaughter. How happy she was. And then she discovered that magic ingredient that so perpetrates itself through the world. Boys. By this time, visions of sugar plums danced in her head. If only I could find a man who would love me. And then the old strains of the song, young love, first love. And there she is with her first love. Look at that radiant smile. Look at those braces. Look at those winning ways. Oh, don't you just love me, Ashley? Isn't this just making your day? Listen at the background music. Isn't it sweet? Isn't it wonderful? Don't you just love your grandfather? Ah, yes. And along came the second daughter of Thomas Marshall McElmurry and Imogene, no middle initial Bond. And there she was as a child. She hated everybody. She gritted her teeth constantly. Constantly, you could see the inner struggle within her. She hated people. She hated the world. She hated everybody. And she's gritting her teeth and saying, I hate everybody. Soon she learned that the world would not accept her without a smile. And she began to smile. I'll never forget the first time she smiled. Everybody smiled back. She said, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I've got to stop frowning. And then, as she grew older, and she discovered boys, what a smile, what a winning way. And there she began to practice and practice. How can I get a husband? How can I grow up and be successful and have a charming, handsome, debonair man as my mate? And so even with her beautiful smile and her charming, debonair ways, still no husband, she thought to herself, how can I get a husband? She pondered about it, she thought about it, and suddenly she said, I'm going outside this house. I'm going out into the world. I have discovered a way to get a husband. And then she said, I'll wear shorts. And as she went outside the house wearing shorts, sure enough, it wasn't long until a red-headed peckerwood saw her. And he said, wow, get a hold of that. And look what it led to. This charming wedding. What a beautiful wedding. What a beautiful wedding. I doubt if any minister ever conducted a wedding any better than this one. I wish I knew who conducted that wedding. It must have been a charming, charming wedding. And so we bring to an end, at least for now, the story of Tammy McElmurry, who is a missionary Baptist preacher's wife. And sure enough, it was not long in this marvelous marriage until along came Jennifer Brown. Here she is being held by her loving parents. There Tammy is in all her radiance, and there Tommy Brown stands before us. I used to ask him, son, why do you part your hair in the middle? Over and over again I asked, and he would never reply. Finally one day I figured it out. The reason he parted his hair in the middle is because there wasn't anything there. And now we move on to Jennifer as she grows up. Jennifer growing up in all her radiance, sitting in her little chair. Sweet, tender, innocent. And as that growth continued, we see her in her school days. Happy, joyous, no problems. Life was wonderful. She had many girlfriends. She had many toys. She loved to play and romp. She had life to the fullest. But tragedy lies ahead. What was that sinister thing that lay ahead? You guessed it, boys. Someone told her, perhaps if you'll carry a flower in your hand, boys will notice you. Normally, most people would have picked out a rose. But Jennifer picked out a stinkweed. And there she stands with a stinkweed in her hand, waiting for a boy to sweep her off her feet. Still no boy. But as time passes, she said, perhaps if I'll wear glasses and develop a sweet little smile, boys will notice me. But still no boys. Finally in her life, success has come. She has boyfriends. The glasses and a wild hairdo were enough. And now she's surrounded by admiring men. And it wasn't long until a second child came out of this marvelous union of Tommy Brown and Tammy Lynn McElmurry. A beautiful little child called Melissa. I'll never forget, as she grew up, I never could understand why her cheeks were so full and puffed. And I said, Jennifer, not Jennifer, but Melissa. Melissa, why are you always going out to that acorn tree? And then I discovered the truth about Melissa. She was squirrely, and she had been storing up acorns for years for the winter months. But as time passed, she began to lose her fear of the winter months. And sure enough, her sweet little cheeks began to shrink as the acorns were digested. She, like her mother, had problems with her temper. Since there wasn't a bear rug in her house, she'd lay down on any kind of a rug and scream for hours, saying, I want it, mine, 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 mine. But the temper tantrums continued, and even at Christmas time, when most people were happy, Melissa would sit and twirl her hair for hours. She wanted a permanent set for Christmas, but no permanent set, and the poor child had to use her fingers constantly. Finally, the solution was found to her temper tantrum problem. Her brother Chris began to pull the chair out from under her every time she sat down. Every time she threw a fit and sat down, Chris would pull the chair out. It wasn't long until back problems forced Melissa to stop throwing these fits. And then she developed into the tender, sweet, charming, handsome young lady that you see today in all of her radiant innocence. Managed to get yourself in there, son. And so, even with the chair removal method of getting her temper tantrums quieted down, further work was needed. So her father began to run with her every day to get her to take out her frustrations on the pavement. And she would run and she would stomp and stomp and stomp and stomp and stomp. And finally, after many weeks, she was cured. And her father gave her this card that you see. A card that shows Melissa is finally a normal child. Of course, her beloved sister Jennifer had her doubts. And you can see these doubts portrayed in her older sister's face about this transformation. But Jennifer was wrong. And today we see Missy with a cute little bow in her hair. Oh, how she loves her grandfather McElmurry. How she cares for him, because he was the one who advised Chris to pull out the chair. And he was the one who recommended the running treatment. And now, because of the running treatment, she has flat feet. But never mind, she's happy and she's smiling even with flat feet. And then along came the third child, Melissa's younger brother, Chris. Fortunately, having already experienced the problem of acorns in the cheeks, it wasn't long after his birth that it was discovered what was causing those puffed cheeks. Once the acorns were surgically removed, then Chris began to experience the normal feelings that a boy feels, and he discovered girls. And here we see Chris with his first encounter with a girl. Not knowing how to be romantically inclined, Chris stole her gun, thinking that she would like him because he had stolen her gun. But such was not the case. After training by his grandfather, he began to watch dirty movies. But Chris knew there's got to be a better way. And so finally Chris found a sweet little girl in the 3rd grade that would give him a kiss. Would you like to know what Chris's reaction was to that first kiss? Stand by. It's coming. And friends, here is that reaction. Wow! What a kiss! What a kiss! Because of that one kiss, his life changed. And today we now see Chris as a well-adjusted young man, happy in life, happy, loving life. No more dirty movies. No more stealing guns from little girls. Just a well-adjusted young man. And here we see him enjoying a wonderful time with his sister Melissa, who has overcome her temper tantrum problem. Chris has overcome his anxiety about girls, and they're happy, 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 happy. And then along came their 4th child, Jonathan. Jonathan was a shy child. During the first 5 years of his life, they couldn't keep him out of the car. He rarely ever came in the house. They delivered his meals in the car. And here he is, shyly looking back over the front seat. But in point of time, as he grew older. Finally, he realized that there were happier places. But he was always happiest in the car. He was always smiling in the car. Finally, Jonathan has come out of the car. And now there Jonathan is smiling, and he smiles outside the car. He smiles in public places. Are his parents happy about this change in his lifestyle? Are they thankful that he's overcome his car fetish and now can live among real people? Let's let this next picture answer that question. And here's your answer. Look at that. What a happy mother. What a happy child. And so finally, when the youngest child had reached an age that all of his childish fetishes had been overcome. Remember, this family had problems with girl fetish. They had a problem with car fetish. They had a problem with temper tandems. All kinds of problems. Would they ever revert? Yes, one day in a small town in Missouri, the whole family, in spite of all this training, all through temper tantrums. It was wild. It was unbelievable. We're now waiting for their parole. A loving grandfather, a loving father, and a loving father-in-law is looking forward to the day when they'll be released for rehab. Along came the third child to Thomas Marshall McElmurry and Imogene, no middle initial, Vaughn. Their beloved Terry, born in South Ruislip in England. The sweet child, gentle, loving, kind. The only problem the child had, she had a fetish for horror movies. And she became convinced that someone had shrunk Santa Claus. What a traumatic experience it had on her as a child. Running around believing that Santa Claus had been shrunk. But she overcame it. She overcame it, and today you see her in all her radiant glory, growing up as a teenager into adulthood. We thought that the Santa Claus fetish had been overcome. We thought she had finally overcome the understanding that Santa Claus had not been shrunk and that he was real. Has there ever been a reoccurrence? Unfortunately, there has. Yes, our beautiful daughter Terry. We thought she had overcome the Santa Claus fetish. Year after year, we watched her as things were normal. But then, as she grew older, the Santa Claus fetish returned. She was so afraid that someone had shrunk Santa Claus that each Christmas might be the last. And so every time that gifts were received, she would put them all in her lap and she would say, "Mine, mine, 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 mine." And then along came child number 4 to Thomas Marshall McElmurry and Imogene, no middle initial, Vaughn. Candy, named after a notorious Fort Worth stripper, Candy Barr. A loving child, a kind child, born in the well-known metropolis of Noster, Missouri. But she moved, later on became a sand lizard, and graduated from Dardanelle High School, Sigma Cum Laude, FOBCODIOU, and PDQ. What was her goal? What was her dream? All her life, she had dreamed of being an astronaut. And sure enough, after graduating from high school, she was launched into outer space. Launched there, hopefully to remain with a one-way ticket. But was that the end of her life? No, after her return from outer space, she began to develop the same trait that was common among the McElmurrays. She was looking for a husband. She was looking for someone to love her. How did she go about this? What method did she use? We're going to find out in these next pictures. It wasn't long until she said, "Men don't want women astronauts. Men want women with small waistlines." She began to wear a girdle. She began to wear it down her waistline. Still, no men. And then she sent to Nashville, Tennessee for her Dolly Parton kit. And she discovered the secret when she received her Dolly Parton kit. And sure enough, it wasn't long until she had found a husband. A true success story. From rags to riches, from astronaut to Dolly Parton. What a story. What a creation. The Dolly Parton story. And then along came Candy's first child. Well, dog my chops. Look at that smile. Look at that personality. Dog my chops. Anybody got a pork chop in there? Give me something to eat quick. It wasn't long until Joshua began to develop multiple personalities. And people began to see that there was a Josh 1, a Josh 2, a Josh 3, and a Josh 4. But after psychiatric work conducted by his grandfather McElmurry, that marvelous all-knowing man, he was finally returned to a single personality, Joshua Slaughter. And then he went on being a single personality to graduate, holding in his hands the diploma. Is this the end of the story? No, there's another child. Another child that followed. And I think it's worth, at this time, talking about that child. And here he is, the picture of naughtiness. Beck's bad boy. The child with a mischievous smile. Many poses, many ways. Here he is as a quick change artist, changing over into another outfit. As we see him laying on a bear rug. What happened to the bear? You guessed it. And here he is, a quick change artist, going back again, looking at us with all that smiling, all that mischievousness. What a pair, these two. What a marvelous and wonderful pair these two are. Joshua and Jonathan, the Bonzo Boys, overcoming difficulties in life, ever thankful for their marvelous grandfather, patriot, hero, deliverer of the general population. And then along came the McElmurray's fifth child. After 4 girls finally there arrived, this happy, jovial little fella, Thomas Marshall McElmurray Jr. Here he is anxiously awaiting for his food. As he grew into youth, he thought to himself, perhaps I should pursue a musical career. But then, alas, as we take a look at this next photograph, you can see his dejected countenance as he realized, music is not for me. If only I had inherited the marvelous singing voice and musical abilities of my father. And alas, what sadness in the face of a young child, realizing he does not have the magnificent voice of his charming father. But adversity shaped his life well, for it was in this school in Little Rock that for the first time in his life he was bitten by a black boy. Bitten viciously by a black boy, but protected by his marvelous father, who took him for a tetanus shot. And so through all this adversity of being bitten by a black child, the tetanus shot, and all the other things, there came forth this well-adjusted, smiling young man, Thomas Marshall McElmurray Jr. Yes, and who did Thomas Marshall McElmurray Jr. select for a bride? The wonderful Beverly Moore. Here she is with all her radiant beauty. You may ask, why isn't the top of her head visible? There was a gigantic wart that had grown there. And so, because in this family, we certainly never like to embarrass anyone, we took the photograph such that the gigantic, horrendous green wart would not appear. Wonderful, aren't we? And they were born to Beverly and Tom, Thomas Marshall McElmurray the third. What a name. And here he is playing in the bathtub. The child was a wonderful child. During his early years, he developed lockjaw. And after much medical attention, doctors were unable to make the adjustment. But finally, April with her beautician's training, was able to free his jaws, and he was able to speak once again, such that he became a wonderful, well-adjusted child, standing on the outdoors with his jaws once again repaired. And today, he is what you would expect, a marvelous, charming young man. And here he is with that winning smile, Thomas Marshall McElmurry III, better known as Trey, our buddy, our pal. And it wasn't long until again a second child was born to Thomas and Beverly. And here her big brother Trey is, holding her in a chair. Look at the smile on that young man's face. Look at the smile on the father's face as he holds Courtney in his arms. A lot of happiness, a lot of joy. And here she is, Beverly Bump, holding that same beautiful little Courtney. Beverly, Tom, Trey, and Courtney. A fine family. Surprised your old father isn't saying anything bad? Your old father's just kidding. And here she is, the youngest of my grandchildren, Courtney McElmurry. And here she is with her mother holding her to close out this sequence. I hope all of you understand that I'm just joking and that I love you all, and that you won't take offense at what I'm saying, because I'm having a good time, and I hope you are too. And here is the next child in a long sequence of children born to Thomas Marshall McElmurry and Imogene, no middle initial, Vaughn. This is number 6, Michael McElmurry. Here he is, a very small bundle of joy, with his mother holding him in Little Rock, Arkansas. The child grew, and he had many strange fetishes. He loved to feel the wind blowing in his face, and as the wind would blow in his face, he would smile. He grew into young adulthood, and there was always this winning smile, and this mischievous way, which endeared him to all his teachers, and especially the principals. How happy his father was with him, because the more he grew, the more he learned to deceive. And here he is, the pride of Dardanelle Public School System, the scourge of Allah. Many activities involving his conduct in school caused his father tremendous spiritual growth, as his father truly learned to pray and to have great faith in God. With the passage of time, we see him at the height of his development. This photograph was taken in the Shreveport jail by a well-known drug addict. As you can see, the lighting wasn't exactly correct. And here he is looking out and saying, "Help, help, 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 help." But fortunately, with the passage of time, he has now turned into a Washington, D.C. stud. And here he is, Mr. Macho, Michael McElmurry, who finally at last, his father can say, "I'm very proud of this child. I've always loved him, but now I'm very proud of this child. Thank you, Lisa, for training this boy in the way he should go." And here we are with Mike's beloved, Lisa. Lisa was very shy. For most of her life, she hid in a poorly lit broom closet. And finally one day, she decided to venture out of this broom closet. Having ventured out of the broom closet, there she was in all her beauty. And it wasn't long until the Frito Bandito, El Mucho Studo, Michael McElmurry, discovered her. And they were married. How has it helped Michael's life? Well, his mother and father were never able to do a whole lot with him, but Lisa has been able to do a great deal. How has she accomplished this? I think you'll see the answer to this question in the next picture. For many years, Lisa watched Star Trek. It was with great interest that she noticed Spock and his ability to apply the Vulcan nerve press on a certain nerve traveling through the lower scapula into the brain. It was through this pressure on his left particular that she was able to bring Michael under control. And here in this photograph, she is saying as she applies the Vulcan press to his left shoulder, "Stand still, dummy, and do what I say." And finally a method was devised by some other human being than his mother and father to bring Michael under control. If only I had learned the Vulcan neck press as a young father, the child might have developed much sooner than his present condition. And now comes the last of the McElmurry children. Number 7, the number of perfection and completion. Born to Thomas Marshall McElmurry and Imogene No Middle Initial Bond, the court George G. Meade in Maryland upon his retirement from the National Security Agency, defender of the faith, patriot, protector, general deliverer of the entire human race. Don't know why I threw that in, just sounded good at the time. April in her youth loved to lead groups. And here we find her with her first youth group that she is leading in a school. And here she is in the center of the group, the leader. April, the youth leader. One of the greatest tragedies in this child's life involved Santa Claus. The child developed a fetish about Santa Claus, and she loved Santa Claus. And here we see the child standing to the right of Santa, and Ashley Lynn sitting on his lap. Intense jealousy developed between the two, and April said, "Santa, Santa, can't I sit on your lap? Can't I sit on your lap?" And then Santa said, "Why, certainly." And all was well, and a beautiful smile broke out across her face. Youth group leader and a lover of Santa Claus, my youngest daughter, April McElmurry. For April to recover from her Santa Claus fetish, but finally she did. Here she is, a well-adjusted, loving child, youngest daughter, and beloved of her mother and father. And here she is feeding the youngest grandchild in the family, Courtney McElmurry. Yes, April is a wonderful daughter, but she has another wonderful daughter of the McElmurrays, her sister, Terry. And here we want to close this particular episode by wishing you happy holidays. It's a most wonderful time of the year. And what Christmas tape would be complete without our other daughter, Rachel McElmurry. And here Rachel is in all her glory. And oh, the titles that she has: registered nurse, amateur brain surgeon, friend of Jocelyn, and car hop. How wonderful it is to have a daughter who's a car hop, a friend of Jocelyn Elders, an amateur brain surgeon, and a registered nurse. Either a registered nurse or a real nerd. We're not quite sure what the RN stands for. But here she is, our friend Rachel. Ever vigilant, ever alert, sic semper tempus, Iranus. Hey, nini midabir, hey tev etspata. Boker tov, Raquel, Boker tov. And a merry, merry Christmas from all of us to all of you. And just a few odds and ends toward the end of this film. Here's Candy with her typical attitude. There she is. Take a look for yourself. Who am I? What am I? Where am I? And what is this? And here we have a family scene. In the early stages of the McElmurry family, here we see Vicky picking her teeth. We see Sweet Candy twisting Tommy's arm. And we see Terry rejoicing about the entire scenario. And there in the center, is Tammy, placid, calmly watching the entire scene, waiting to pull out her ball bat to settle the entire conflict. April went on to become a cheerleader, or Terry went on to become a cheerleader. Vicki went on to become a dental hygienist. Candy went on to become a mud wrestler. And Tommy went on to become a cripple with a left arm that still doesn't function properly. And finally, we have another family scene from long ago in Stokenchurch, England. And here they are, Vicki and Tammy in a Christmas scene. And there Vicki is with her boyish fetishes of carrying 2 6 guns, one on each hip. And here we are in Brantridge Cottage, born in Bucks, country of England. Here's sweet Vicki and sweet Tammy. You see them from the front. They look pretty good, don't they? But take a look at how they look from the rear. Christmas time. Did you ever see baggier bottoms on 2 children than these 2? And the real question is, what's making those sag like that? Their mother's bending over. Perhaps she knows. And here they are in a final setting, with Vicki looking back the wistful memories of Christmas. And there's Tammy. Always has to have something in her mouth. There they are, in jolly old Stokenchurch, England. And so, with all this in mind, we're not going to forget that wonderful man who was able to film all this when he was young. And I asked him the question, why do you part your hair? I finally figured it was because there was nothing there. And now, there isn't anything in the place where the hair used to lay. And so, in closing, I heard him exclaim, ere he drove out of sight, Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night.